All right. Welcome to another episode of Millennial Money Matters with Kelly Turner.
Derek Mazzarella and
guest host Jonathan Archer
for round two. So
Round
you're
two.
officially our first guest that is returning, that's coming back.
I'm a returning star. That's very exciting.
yeah, we got
Exactly.
so many letters.
People were like, we need to bring Jonathan
Yeah,
back.
your
So-
mom was like, I sent 12 letters in. I was like, okay, that's a lot.
So fun fact though, Jonathan, your episode is our most listened to episode.
That's pretty cool.
So we were like, who do we need to bring back? It's Jonathan. And I think the topic for today feels very poignant for me, and I'm sure for Jonathan at the moment. And it is, what is the current state of the housing market here in Connecticut? Because it's been fun.
In one word, chaotic.
Oh, that's a good
Okay, what makes it chaotic?
I think chaotic, both good and bad, depending what side of the fence you're on. Are you a seller or are you a buyer? Or there's also that third fence. Are you someone who's renting right now? Because I recently decided to sell my home and didn't really know where my next, home was going to be. So I started looking at rentals for giggles.
Yeah.
I was very, very sticker shocked when I went out there. Not just in Glastonbury, but West Hartford, Farmington, downtown Hartford. It's kind of crazy out there. Again, chaotic.
Chaotic. Yeah. So we are still in a situation where the price per square foot for rent is higher than owning. And when I tell people that, because people are looking at how high housing prices are, how high interest rates are, and they're like, how is that possible? But it is.
Do you know what's behind that? Or you just, do you have any theories?
Yeah, well, I think it started during COVID and it was a supply versus demand situation. And I think especially during COVID when that's when like the inventory problem really began. So there wasn't a lot of houses on the market. So people who were shopping, they're looking to move out of mom and dad's house, got delayed because of COVID.
Yeah.
Right. So then you had this big bump in like 2022 of young adults trying to move out. They ended up in rentals kind of as the price of everything was going up. The price of rentals went up with it. And now it's sort of this game of chicken. I think of like, how high can we go before people stop renting, before people push back? And I think we're hitting it. We've seen some rental prices come down a little bit, but I would say like 2024 into 2025 was probably I would see borrowers, because they have to put, if they're renting, like what their current rent is when they apply, and I would die. It would be $3,800 a month, $4,000 a month. And I am like, what do you get for that? Like my last apartment, so this was like 14 years ago. My last apartment before I owned my house, I paid $650 a month.
Total? Or like, is that like per person rate? You have like 5 roommates?
I lived by myself.
You live by yourself? That's insane.
I lived in a 1-bedroom, teeny tiny, and it was in a multifamily house apartment, but I had a little kitchen, I had a little bathroom and a little living room.
How many ghosts live with you?
It was a lot.
Okay.
And there was an older woman who owned the house who lived underneath me, who every single day I had to go visit. So that was like part of the rent too, that I had to be like, do you need anything? Can I bring you anything? So like, trade off, but it was $650. It was like free. And I'm like, and I moved out of that. And you were probably looking at what? $3,800, $4,000.
It was anywhere. The cheapest thing I found was maybe $2,500 to $2,600. But on top of that, there's amenity fees, and then most of these places, if you go to like downtown Hartford, don't have parking. So you've got to add in parking.
Yeah.
And I've got 2 dogs. There's no place to walk a dog. You got to get in an elevator or walk downstairs, and it's just the rent thing is crazy to me. And I know we've said this 2 years for people. Really try and stop renting, but now the reality is it is very hard to save when you're spending $3, $4, $5 a month just on rent, plus gas at $5 a gallon, plus groceries.
Yeah,
And it's
utilities and all that stuff.
Yep. So thank God for, those time to own programs and things like that.
Right. And what's interesting, despite how tight this market is, I've been having clients with great success with CHFA Time to Own. For those of you who don't know, we have mentioned this in the past. We are here in Connecticut. CHFA Time to Own is the Connecticut Housing and Finance Authority first-time homebuyer program. It gives you up to $25,000 in a forgivable second mortgage. It's not a grant. I just would like to point that out. People like to call it a grant. It's not a grant. It is a forgivable second loan that is forgiven in 10% increments over 10 years. It is a fabulous first-time homebuyer tool. It can pay for down payment and closing costs completely for a lot of people. people. And even 3 or 4 years ago, it was sometimes hard to get clients' offers accepted with these housing type programs. But I think it's such a good one that even listing agents who want to be picky can't deny that, like, if my kid was buying a house, I would absolutely tell them to use this program. So we've seen the stigma behind it, around it, kind of cool down a little bit.
I think the other one that's been tricky the last couple of years in this challenging and ever challenging market would be the VA program.
Yeah.
And they just loosened up some of the appraisal restrictions on VA as well. So I think they've kind of realized, we've got some, maybe not disenfranchised, but these kind of stigmas around these programs. We got to kick them because they're really good.
Yeah, they're really, I would agree with that. Yeah. So VA loan programs, so VA and FHA had slightly tighter appraisal requirements. You couldn't have peeling paint. You couldn't have broken window, like a lot of stuff. And it's like health and safety stuff. It made sense. But like the peeling paint rule was about lead paint. Well, lead paint was disallowed in 1978. So if you have a house that was built in 1985, it could have peeling paint because that's how old it is at this point, because it's over 40. I know that for a fact because that's how old. Well, I wasn't born. I was born before 1985.
I was born in 85.
There you go.
Yeah.
How old are you?
40.
40. See, there you go. So it's a 40-year-old house. It could have peeling paint, but lead paint's not a concern anymore. So they got rid of that rule that they don't care about lead paint after 1978. It's just cosmetic, and some other ones as well. And I agree with you. I think that we have been in this conventional buyer, 20% down, waiving everything, inspections, appraisal, mortgage contingency for like 2 years now. And we're just seeing it soften up a little bit. Can you tell us a little about like what you're seeing on the listing side?
So we're actually not seeing as much cash anymore. People are not pulling, funds out of retirement and then mortgaging the house after and putting it back. They're not taking that risk. Plus, Derek and I were speaking before the session, and the market's kind of down, and people don't want to pull their money out when it's down. People aren't waiving inspections as much anymore, unless we've got, so much information or so much data on, what's been replaced and what's new, or if it's public utilities versus private. But people are still waiving mortgage contingency, but those are usually the extremely qualified buyers that have gone through that process of basically they're fully approved. Just, give me a contract appraisal, we'll give you the loan. People are still trying to get a little bit creative with, the inspection part and the deposit part and the closing date. So there is still some competition there, and people are getting, a little creative, but I would say it's toned down. It's not the Wild West like it was. We've seen offers, 200,000-300,000 over, no inspections, no, cash here, huge appraisal gaps, and close in 30 days, and you can stay for 6 months. That's gone, and thank gosh.
So is that because demand is down, or is that because there's more inventory, or is it like the combination of the two?
It's a little bit of both. What I've read just from the real estate side is that mortgage applications dropped a little bit again. The rates went back up, so that might have taken some people out. But we're in spring market, even though it's dreary and brown and gray outside. It is spring market. There is so much coming on, and I think some buyers were like, "Ooh, let's pause for a minute," because the winter was really slow. There was nothing coming on, and I think people were feeling the stress of like, "Oh, I have to pick a house. I need to find something." So I've talked to a couple of people recently who said, "You know what? I'm just going to re-sign my 12-month lease or 13-month lease, and let's see what comes on. And if I have to break my lease because something amazing comes on, I'll break my lease. I'll pay the month or two." So I think people are kind of pausing. I will say West Hartford has opened up the hydrant on homes. Like
so many.
I don't know what's going on.
I will tell you, I have a couple that is shopping in West Hartford. And they're at a very competitive price point. They're at that like 800, which in West Hartford that's the market right there. And they were sending me one house and then another house, and I got 5 this weekend. They're like, "Can you price up all 5 of these?" And I was like, there are 5 houses for sale in this price point. Oh my God. Yeah. West Hartford has gotten really busy. Glastonbury still not so much. Fairfield is another area. If you're here in Connecticut, Fairfield has really, we've seen a lot of stuff come on. And so that's been exciting. But I think in general, I would agree with you on my side. I've seen a lot less waiving of everything with my clients. I have seen a lot less crazy over, like a year ago, somebody would send me a house, right? 123 Main Street. It's on the market for 600. I would not even make them a worksheet or a pre-approval for 600. I would make them one for 650, 750, which sounds so crazy, but that's what we were doing. And now, now I'm doing 620, 640, and 660 for the same, you know what I mean? The same house. So we're definitely seeing that a little bit. Now, home prices are still up though. They're up 5% year over year. So I think one of the things that I'm seeing, and I don't know if you're seeing it, is like a year ago, it was always this game of like, we're going to really underprice the house and then we're going to let everybody go bananas bonkers over it. Which is, for a seller, it's a winning strategy. I know why we do it. But I think I've seen more houses priced like appropriately, that I'm like, oh yeah, that's what that should be on the market for. And it will go for more than that, but not 100,000 more.
Just put an offer in on one in West Hartford. I think personally, my opinion, that it was underpriced. And, we submitted an offer 10% over. I got an email this morning. We were not chosen, nor were 20 other people. There were 22 offers on this little house.
That sounds like 2023. Yeah, that's 2023 vibes.
So West Hartford's still living there maybe, but Glastonbury is definitely not.
Well, wasn't there some study that said like Hartford area was the #1 housing market in the country?
Hartford County is one of the top 10 housing markets in the country. And I think, West Hartford's probably carrying a bulk of that.
Now, does that just mean more people want to move there? Is that what that means? Or is it just like activity wise? Maybe that's a dumb question, but
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, we've definitely seen an uptick in people relocating for work. Definitely, with the hospitals and the attorneys. But we get people all the way down to New London that are working at EB that will consider Glastonbury, So
that's all.
There's just been an influx of people.
Yeah, Connecticut has been a growing housing market for years, but I do think we're probably hitting like an apex of that right now, where we're just really seeing. And I would say the same thing. I have clients moving here from Texas. I have clients moving here from Mississippi. I have clients that just moved here from California. I have clients moving here from France. I have clients moving from Maine. So like I have a lot of people kind of coming in. The other thing that I have found interesting is I have a lot of inquiries, and it's a little bit harder for them to move up here just from the price perspective. But I have a lot of people from Florida looking to move back to Connecticut, who lived in Connecticut, moved to Florida, and are on their way back. Same with like South Carolina, North Carolina, that area. And a lot of them are older couples that were going to retire down there that are now on their way back. And so that's been an interesting shift over the last few months.
We're getting a lot of people moving actually, to South Carolina, Florida. They're doing the retirement thing. We're maybe somewhere in the Cape, but we do get people that, call us and say, hey, it's fine down here, but I miss my family and my friends that are up there.
Yeah.
I miss having the 4 seasons. So they do come back. They kind of, you have to get over the tax thing, but it's been really interesting to see, there's kind of this little stalemate that's been going on these last 5-6 years now, is that you've got millennials who have saved up money and are doing well in their jobs that want to buy houses. But then you've got the baby boomers who have these grown-up kids. They're like, well, I want the small house. But so does the 20-something or the 30-something-year-old, and they all want it at the same time. There's just not enough to go around. We're still kind of in that, but then you've got the 30-somethings that are having a kid or two, and now they're ready for the 3 to 4 or 5,000 square foot house, but no one's letting those go either.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. What I think is interesting that I see on my end is millennials. So like the 40-year-olds, we bought a house already. We would theoretically in a normal market be moving up now. We'd sell our starter home, we'd move up. Millennials are not doing that because we are still, it's the rate issue. We have 3% rates. We don't want 6% rates. I'm seeing that loosen up a little bit in the last year, that like all of a sudden there's millennials that are like, yeah, no, that was my 2-bedroom house, was cool for a few years, but now I've got, a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old and we really just don't fit. So despite the rates, we're going to move. The biggest shift that I have seen is the 30-year-olds who normally would have already purchased, the 30-year-olds, 35-year-olds, they would have already purchased. They haven't purchased because of the market, and they are just stockpiling cash. And they're going to now jump the starter home. So they're going from I'm renting to the $650,000, $700,000 home with 20% down.
Yeah.
And those are honestly, for me, those are my strongest buyers in the market because they don't have a contingency to sell. They've got the cash liquid and available. They're ready to put 20% down and they want to get out of their rental situation, and they're aggressive, and they're beating the millennials and the boomers because they have, and they can, so we talked about underwriting. I underwrite everybody ahead of time. Jonathan knows this. So my people generally are coming in hot. They're ready to go. But I have had more, hey, can you close in 2 weeks? They will take my offer if we can close in 2 weeks. Well, if you are a 40-year-old with 2 kids and you got to sell your house, you can't close in 2 weeks. But if that's what the seller wants, they're going to take that Gen Z home buyer who has, I think the creativity has been interesting. I have had quick closes. I have had lots of rent backs. I have had lots of the buyers will pay all of the seller's closing fees. The buyers will pay all the agent's fees. I've seen some funky stuff.
Yeah, one that keeps popping up every now and then is buyers will pay sellers conveyance taxes.
Yeah.
And depending where you are in the marketplace, I mean, that adds up to, it could be $8,000, it could be $15,000 additionally out of pocket. So people are getting creative. The other interesting thing, the law changed about 1.5 years ago with regard to commissions, which we don't really talk about, but we can hear. They decoupled them. We used to go, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we're going to take your listing for 6% and we're going to give out 3%, we're going to share half. And now we don't do that. We say, what do I work for? And this is the commission, and the offers will come in with, requests for compensation, and it's going to be a range. But what's interesting is, we thought we would see lower compensations. It's actually higher. So it's been a benefit for agents, but it's also been a really great negotiating tool for both buyers and sellers, depending how everything's structured. That's been one really
well, can you think of that, John? Like, what does that look like? So does that mean, okay, now I'm paying 4 to someone to sell and someone else, the buyer's paying 4 too? Or so now it's paying 8, or is it like something else?
So, I would say what we see as an average in our market is still 2.5% to 3%.
Yeah.
So everything's negotiable. So if I came to you, Derek, and I said, all right, you want to hire Jonathan Archer to sell your house? Well, this is what Jonathan Archer works for. And that's all we're concerned about today. Yeah. And then in a week when we go on, we're going to see offers come in with additional requests for compensation. So you kind of take those two numbers and you get your somewhere between 5 and 6, maybe 6.5 or 7 in a different market. But I would say 99.9% of the offers we see, the sellers are still paying the buyer's agent compensation. It's very rare where we see a request for no compensation, or someone just says, hey, we're covering our agent. It's our agent. We've been working with them. We've got the cash to give them on this purchase. Don't sweat it. That's actually going to make your offer stand out too.
Yep.
Because it just nets the seller that much more money. But
yeah, I would agree with that. I think when this whole thing came out, real estate thought the sky was falling. Our lives were over. And like, even on the lending side, we were like, oh my God, all of our buyers are going to have to pony up all this extra money that they don't necessarily have. And it's been like mainly a non-issue. I have come across a couple of agent situations, and again, that's where I do get to like hang out on the side. Like, oh, you guys hash that out. That's not me. But like,
still, please close the house.
Yeah, still please close. Where they like kind of go at it. I will tell you what I have seen is I think that the value of agents has gone up significantly, and what you're getting for what you're paying for has gone up significantly. And I think it's washed some of the lazier agents and agents with less to offer who aren't going to go above and beyond kind of out of the market, because you're not just selling the house, right? Oh, I brought a buyer, so like I've done my job. Like now the sellers kind of know, no, another agent brought the buyer. That's not your job. And so I've seen some washout a little bit, and I've seen some kind of, I don't want to say fighting back, but like some of even my buyers who are also sellers really are going after like, what are you going to do to get me the best price possible, as opposed to just kind of the old like put the sign up and whatever. So I think the top tier agents are really floating to the top now.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. The way you kind of interview agents has changed too, because normally we're going and we're interviewing with sellers, and you're probably up against 2, 3, maybe even 4 other agents. They're interviewing the top agents in the area, seeing what your marketing is like, what your personality is like, what's your idea for their house, what's your strategy. But then we're also getting people that are interviewing us as buyers agents, and it's not just 1 or 2. Like they're going out there saying, all right, if I'm possibly going to be on the hook for somewhere between 2 and 3% of whatever sales price I'm going after, I want to make sure that I like you, that you're going to work on my behalf, that you know what you're doing. How many houses in my price range have you sold? Do you sell in that town a lot, et cetera, et cetera. So we're getting a lot more of that, which is actually really nice, because it allows us to kind of meet these consumers first and even see if we're a match. Because in the past, sometimes we would just get paired up with people. Hey, my friend's a realtor. You should go work with them. And they work with them for a year. And they're like, yes, this relationship's really not going so well.
Yeah.
They don't pick up my calls. They're not getting me any houses. And all of a sudden they switch. They break up with that agent. And they come to someone experienced.
Like Jonathan
I'm not
Archer.
pointing at me, but I've had people switch to me and they're like, how did we go wrong for a year? I'm like, well, what were you doing? And I'm like, were you not getting any advice? Were you not getting any helpful input? Were you not getting criticism? When you submitted offers, were you getting feedback? No, we weren't getting any feedback. What do you mean? We're told we were lost. It's like, well, it helps to dig a little bit. So,
well, I mean, that's where like the relationship helps. Like you probably know other agents in the area. I think it's gone from just find me the house. It's like, obviously that's a big step in like finding a house you like, but it's also the stuff in the back end. It seems like it's more important almost.
I would agree with that too. The thing with newer agents that maybe haven't been in the market very long, maybe they've been in 6 months to a year, they just got their license, and their friends and family want to use them, but at the same time, you take a little bit of a risk because it's such a large purchase, or it's your asset that you're selling, and everyone's got to cut their teeth somewhere, but maybe you want to find someone that's aligned with a bigger brokerage, or that's on a team that has the backing and the support to ask questions, so that you're not just you're using AI in addition to your agent to help sell your house, because no one has any answers. That's not really how it's going to work. There was that one guy that sold his house using AI.
He did. No, I think the other thing that I at least find interesting on my purview, kind of working with buyers, is the relationships between all of the parties involved, the attorneys, the lender, and the agent, I think means more today than it even meant a year ago. Is that offers are getting chosen because of all of the parties involved, because they know the lender, they know the buyer's agent, they know this deal is going to close, they know that there's reputations at stake, they know this. The kind of handshake, like, yeah, we'll get it done. Don't you trust me? No, I don't trust you.
Because they don't know you.
Because they don't know you. And I think like the amount of phone calls that I get, I number one speak to listing agents on almost every single offer my clients make at this point. That was not 5 years ago. Nobody wanted to talk to the lender. The buyer's agent didn't want to talk to the lender, let alone the listing agent.
I can't remember pre-COVID putting in like a cover letter and an introduction letter for myself.
Yeah.
And like an overview of the offer. It was like, hey, offer's attached.
Yeah.
Get back to me. Because it was under, you're always submitting something under.
Right.
But now it's like, hi, it's, John Archer, we spoke on the phone. Thank you for giving me your time. Here's a quick overview of my buyers. Here's a quick overview of their offer, where they stand financially. The underwriter is copied here. We're probably going to use this person for an attorney. By the way, if you want to look at my production, I've also attached that, so I get homes to the finish line. I would say that when it comes down to these multiple offer situations that we are still in, when we sit with our sellers and we say, well, this agent, wrote this offer, it's just terribly written. So that might be an advantage to us that they don't know what they're doing, but it also means that we may not get to the finish line. Whereas, Kathy over here wrote us a tremendous offer. We've worked with her many times. She's been doing this for 20 years and, look at her production. We're going to get this to the finish line, even though maybe that offer is $10,000 less.
Yeah. I've had a couple of those calls where it's like an agent that I know, they call me, they're like, here's a deal. There's an offer slightly higher than yours. It's an agent we've never heard of, working with an online lender. We feel very nervous about the terms that they've put in, so we're gonna go with yours, but I swear to God, this thing better close. And I'm like, okay, let's make it happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that really, the fact that the like listing agent know, like, oh, this is Kelly, I will just call her. I've had a couple. I had a buyer with like an agent that was not familiar to the area, that was not local, that my buyers were making an offer for a listing agent that I also work with, who knows me very well. And I said to the agent, I said, why don't you CC me on the offer? This is going to be competitive. I will respond explaining that we're fully under and all the things that we've done. She was like, absolutely not. That's like, stay in your own lane. And I was like, I'm going to tell you, this agent is going to pull my pre-approval letter out of your packet, see it's me, and call me before she calls you. And she was like, I don't think that's going to happen. And I laughed so hard. That offer hit. 10 minutes later, I look down, my phone is ringing. It is the listing agent, like, hey, I saw the offer come through with you. I don't know who this agent is. Tell me more. And I called the other agent. I was like, oh, hey, by the way, the listing agent called me, like I told you it was going to happen, because that's how it works in this market. What So before we started recording, we were talking a little bit about the current today. Today is March 31st of 2026. That's what we're recording. This will be on in a couple weeks.
Yep.
The market in the last month has changed because of some outside influences outside of Connecticut. So I want to address that a little bit because I think interest rates are obviously that's the world that I live in have had a big impact, but you're also seeing impacts for people who don't care about the interest rates. And we were sort of chugging down this path in real estate for the last, would you say 6 months, where rates had kind of steadied out. People had their money, stocks were up.
Stocks were up, yeah.
So people were feeling good about it. And then on a Friday night, we started a war with Iran, and everything changed.
We were heading towards what was going to be this amazing spring market, this amazing summer market, and for everyone, for buyers and sellers. And I think it's certainly given some people pause about whether or not we want to make these big financial decisions right now. And it could be first-time home buyers. It could be, people with multiple homes that maybe don't want to pull cash out to buy their next home. Now they're going to wait to sell their home. But, we talked about, just the price of, $5 a gallon of gas, affecting people and your bottom line. So I think it's going to pull people out at certain points in the market. And what's interesting, it might pull more of the higher end buyer out than the entry level buyer. Maybe someone buying a $300,000 or $400,000 home doesn't really care, at 28 years old, what their retirement portfolio looks like today, because we've got some time on that. So it will be very interesting. We're still getting a ton of calls for listings for buyers. The market is still kind of continuing as it should be for spring. However, the conversations are happening about, well, do we think this is going to end soon? What do we think it's going to do to the mortgage rate? Do you think there's going to be more houses coming on? I wish I had a crystal ball for the real estate market.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, interest rates have gone up significantly in the last 3 weeks. So we were almost hitting that high fives that we've been hoping for. And then we were at a 6. And we were all like, yes. So
Almost
with a
there,
6, you can buy points and be at a 5.875. You can buy points and be at a 5.5. We were dabbling in the 5s. And when we see 5 in front of a number, everybody goes, okay, that's not so bad.
Well, it's a very reasonable rate.
Yeah, 5 is great.
Yeah.
If you're in the 5s, glorious. And then literally overnight, we went from 5 to 6.5, nearing 6.75 in some cases. And it happened. This was actually one of the fastest rises in mortgage rate that we've seen in 3 years. It was very quick. And the trick with it is not only has it been fast, but it is volatile. We could go up a quarter in a day. We could drop that quarter tomorrow. The next day we could go up a half or back down again. And part of it's because the news cycle that we're in right now is volatile. We hear one thing and then the next day you hear another thing. And then, stocks went down and then everybody panics. And then the price of oil went up and now inflation's up. And, we have a fight between Fed chairs. And it is just to the point where when I'm sending my consumers, all of my clients, and I've said this in the podcast before, they want to see a house. I send them a worksheet. It has the monthly payment, the closing costs, all of that stuff on it. And I always pull whatever that day's rate is. And for most people, probably for the last 6 months, it had been the same. Whatever rate they saw had been the same, maybe going down. And I have clients that the last time they made an offer was in January. And I think I had quoted them a 5.875. And then they went to make an offer on Friday. And I was like, okay, so your rate is now a 6.375. And I have a disclaimer now that I'm explaining to my clients, what is happening. Here's why I am being conservative, because I would love to say they're going to go down, but I cannot say that. So I've definitely seen people we didn't expect it. And for some weird reason, it's missing from the news. So last time rates went up, everybody knew about it. This is doesn't exist. It's not on the news. Clients,
because oil prices are the news now. That's the thing. Everyone's just focused on gas prices and oil prices. That's what's happening right now.
People have no idea. So when I tell them, they're like, "What do you mean rates are up?" And I send them a bank rate article and I'm obviously trying to educate people, but it was such a sudden shift. And my hope is that it's still cheaper than rent. And that's what I tell people. It's still cheaper than rent. But a lot of it right now is education. It's just educating buyers that like, yes, this is what it looks like. You know, this is sort of your options. But it was a bit of like a bucket of cold water dumped on everybody's head for a little bit.
The what's interesting, you said you were working with people in January and it's now the end of March and the rate's up, and it's kind of like that old saying, was it time and tide wait for no man. So yeah, in January maybe you were waiting for a different house to come on, or thought the rates were going to go down even more. Well, they didn't. They went back up. So I think that, the people that are here March 31st, April 1st, thinking, well, the rate's 6.5. Well, it's got to go back down to 5 something in the next couple months. What if it doesn't? What if it goes up to 7 or 7.5? Well, now your payment's gone up. And that's the thing you were waiting for. So we've always said, if it's the perfect house and the perfect location and it's perfect for you and your needs, buy it. In theory, in a couple years, the rate will go down. You're not going to have that rate for 30 years. You're not going to pay all that interest. Now, they used to say marry the house, date the rate.
I was just going to say that. 5 years ago, that was all of our favorite.
I think some people got in trouble for saying that.
Yeah. I would agree, because when rates first started to go up a couple of years ago, everybody, realtors, lenders were like, this is temporary. They're going to go back down. And then I remember when they like hit 5.5 and we were all like, ugh,
Yep.
Yeah, guys, we hit 8 a few years later. And that's the other reminder that for my clients right now who like have seen the 6.375 and they're crying about it. These same clients were in the market a year ago. And I'm like, guys, you saw a 7. I know that when you see a 5.875 versus the 7, you want it. A 6.375, we're still down. Like rates are still down. They're just not as low as they were.
So I'm not someone who buys a lot of real estate. I am someone who buys a lot of cars. The opposite. I buy depreciating assets. And, the rates in the car market aren't too dissimilar from the real estate mortgage rates, because, they're generally a little bit higher, but they do move. And, whatever the rate comes in when I'm going for a car, I'm like, yeah, it is what it is. I'm like, I'm not keeping it to term for 72 or 60 months or 48 months, whatever it is. I'm like, I don't care about all that interest. I'm going to keep it a year, 6 months. So it's like a rental fee. But a house, not everyone gets a new house every year. That is completely different. But yeah, if you can, obviously the underwriters will determine if you can afford the payment, and if you're comfortable with it, keep it for a couple of years. And if the rates go down where it makes sense, if it drops a point and a half, and you want to refi for another 30, great. Or you get, we do get new jobs, we get promotions, we get bonuses. The stock market goes up. You change careers, and all of a sudden, you were making X amount, and now you're like, now you're living it up. You can refi. This is not the end of the world.
Yeah.
I think the hard thing is people look at is people tend to look at the larger numbers on paper, I think. So what I try and remind generally my first time buyers is, let's not look at the $600,000 price or the 6.5%. Let's look at the monthly payment. Does the monthly payment make sense for you? And what's actually been going on is not so much the rate, is the taxes. We're in Connecticut, of course, so we pay property tax on our homes, and just some of these towns are just the year over year the taxes are going up. That's making the biggest dent for people.
Yeah, I have shared the Connecticut mill rate list with more buyers in the last year than I ever did before. Especially, you've got clients that are shopping in multiple towns, and I have to have mill rate conversations with them. And I make my clients, for the higher mill rate towns, go look at what services you get for that, because you also have to look at the inverse of this town has a low mill rate, but you're paying for your trash. You're paying for, there's other things that you're paying for, and you have to do the math, because there are some towns in Connecticut that when I see the taxes, Hamden, I am it's Hamden, Connecticut. I don't know. Yeah. Hamden, Norwich, East Hartford. There's
Hartford.
Hartford is insane.
People sent me a house in the west end of Hartford. I said, okay, this is gorgeous. I said, just, it's the west end of Hartford, not West Hartford. Let's look at the mill rate. I'm like, if you register your car here, your property tax bill just on your car might be through the roof,
It's that sort of stuff. And yeah, I've been sending a lot of people taxes. And I even said there are some clients, if they're tight, I'm like, this is your max sale price in these 4 towns, and this is your lower max sale price in these 4 towns, because that mill rate disparity is very large.
And that keeps going up too. So it's not like it just stays flat forever like your mortgage would.
Well, that's what I tell people, is that like, could taxes go down? Yeah, in theory. Do taxes go down? No.
Someone asked me a couple of years ago, when do you expect rents to go down? Have they ever gone down? I don't think so.
No, they will
Yeah.
level, which is what they're doing. But that's just like, it's like the cost of eggs, right? That like we saw the cost of eggs rise, as inflation rose, and then inflation went down. But did your cost of eggs really go down? No,
Sort of.
a
but
little
yeah.
bit.
Well, I think the only thing that people need to realize, and we have this conversation all the time, it's like if the prices are going to go down, we are in a recession. Like we don't want that trade-off. Like, do you want to keep your job or do you want your prices to go down?
Yeah,
That's the trade-off.
100%.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for buyers right now? Anything that like you get a new client, this is the 5 things that I tell them to be prepared for, or anything like that?
I'm trying to think, what are the pieces of advice I've always given out is don't get emotionally attached because, statistically speaking, we're going to be let down unless, you're a cash buyer or something. But don't rush. Let's find you the perfect house because, if you are paying 6.5%, 7%, and that could be for a couple more years, let's make sure it's the right house for you. Let's not rush this and let's make an informed decision. No real advice. It is a whole hand-holding process. So it's more advice as we go along. There's really no upfront advice other than, just
Buckle up.
buckle up. Don't get too attached. It's still crazy out there. There's just not enough houses for all these buyers. There's more people being born every day. There's more people coming into, every metro, and, we happen to be in one of them. So that's what's making it really competitive. And sometimes you got to buckle up for a couple of weeks. Sometimes it's months. I've had people for years, but it was worth the wait for them in the end.
Yeah, I see this, and it's funny. I have some clients that like fill out an application, 2 weeks later we're under contract, a month later we're closed, done. And then I have clients right now that I have been working with for 3 years. I think I have priced up 200 homes for them, and it's you never know when you get a client how it's going to go.
All right, so you made me go through my Rolodex because I was thinking about some clients last year that were just amazing. And what happened is they said, we're hiring you. You're the professional. We're going to listen to you. I had other people that also hired me that said that, but didn't do that. And it ended up hurting them financially in the end. But if you're hiring us, you're trusting us, please listen to us. Don't go to your friend who bought a house 20 years ago. We know what we're doing. Well, most of us do. We know what we're doing. You've hired us. We hope that you do trust us and take our advice. Don't, try and throw the conversation into AI and see what AI spits out. I know a lot of people are relying on that. Rely on experienced people, producing in this market that, again, work with attorneys and lenders and agents and know what's up,
Yeah, the AI thing is really funny because in preparation for this, I was on Claude,
Of course.
doing my Claude. You're laughing over Claude is the best thing ever. So I was on Claude, but
Okay, I'm an elder millennial. What is Claude?
Claude is the new ChatGPT.
You got to get on it, John.
You got to get on it. I'll teach you how to use it. I heard about it from Derek. It has changed my life. It's magical. It's
And you can transfer your history over
from
chat.
ChatGPT to it. It's 1,000 times better.
I like Gemini.
So I do like Gemini too, but Claude is
Claude is its own entity.
yeah, and it's so much better.
Yeah.
Claude is actually the millennial of artificial intelligence. It talks like us. It acts like it's us.
Well, it doesn't fluff you up oh, what a great question. I can't imagine anyone else would think of a question like that one.
It's like, this is what you asked for.
Yeah,
here it
there you
is.
go.
Don't bother me. Don't call me. I'm not going to answer the phone.
That is fantastic.
It's amazing. But what was interesting is I was plugging stuff in. I'm generally a good prompt writer, but I was like, as we always joke, in the car on the way here, doing my prep work. And I forgot to initially say Connecticut. I asked about the current state of the housing market, and what it gave me was vastly inaccurate for our market. And it was kind of a light bulb moment for me though, because I was like, how many consumers understand that Connecticut is totally different right now? They're going to plug that information in. They're going to see that home prices are dropping. You can make really lowball offers and get them. You can, we're seeing houses sit on the market for months in some areas of the country, and they're going to come to their agent like, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Claude and ChatGPT told me. And you're going to be like, actually, here in Connecticut, that's not true. And that's one of the big risks with utilizing things like AI and ChatGPT. AI is reading data, but data is always behind.
Yeah.
And the data that it's reading is only as good as the question you're asking it. So if you're not saying, I'm trying to buy a house in Glastonbury, Connecticut, read that data, it's giving you not great information.
It's a recipe. You put in bad ingredients, you get a bad product.
Yeah.
Well, real estate's so local too.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
So
totally local.
even here in Connecticut, and this is, again, one of the wildest parts that we deal with is I'm licensed in a bunch of states. Connecticut's my main hub, and I do business from one end of Connecticut to the other. And the difference between Fairfield County, Hartford County, Middlesex County, New London County is what it's completely different. When I am helping a client in Norwich versus when I'm helping a client in West Hartford, it is a totally different strategy. It is even from the lending side, it's a totally different strategy. We're doing this totally different where I'm sending different, sales price amounts. Like it's totally different. And if you're again asking ChatGPT these questions, it does not understand that.
And there is some data out there that lingers, because you talk about data being delayed. There are homes that have lingered on the market for months and years at some point. And if you got to read the fine print on those, does the house even have flooring? Is the septic system shot? Is it completely overpriced for that town and that market? Did something horrible happen there? You don't know. I've got sent these listings and I'm like, it's been on for 90 days. So I'm going to assume it's condition or price or a little bit of both, or maybe it's next to a power plant. We don't know. We got to figure it out. I'm like, it's sitting on the market for a reason. There is a buyer for every house right now.
Yeah, there really is. Well, I hope that this was helpful for everybody.
Yeah.
I think, again, we try to be timely with our conversations. And as we are sitting in the spring market right now, I would say March is always sort of the beginning of the spring market, but April is normally when things start to really heat up.
All those trees start blooming and all the lawns look better. Yeah, that's really when we want to start photographing. But, traditionally we would start right after Super Bowl. It was a little early this year, but the snow and ice just backlogged us by like a month. But now the phones are ringing off the hook.
Yeah. So if you want to get in on this market, it is time. We're going to put Jonathan's contact information in the show notes. So if you want to reach out to him, I would definitely do it. And my one last advice that I would give people, and I think Jonathan would wholeheartedly agree with it, is if you are thinking you want to buy anytime in the next year, now is the time to start that conversation. Don't wait till your lease is up. Don't wait until you have to start that process now, because it is taking people 6 months to get under contract in some cases, sometimes longer than that. And if you're I have a client right now that their lease is up at the end of December, and they were like, oh, I'm just gonna have a conversation with you, and I'll apply in September. And I actually was like, you need to apply now, because it could take you that long to get under contract. And yes, you may run the risk of having to pay out to end your lease, but if you're trying to time this so you're going to move out of your rental in December and into your new house in January, it's never going to happen.
We have people coming to us now saying, hey, I have up to 2 years, but tell me what I need to do to get my current house ready, and let's go out and start finding something now, because if we find it, we're good. But just letting you know, I've got up to 2 years. And I'm like, well, that does seem like plenty of time, but it's surprising how quickly even 6 months flies by in the real estate market.
Yeah,
So.
I'm sure.
It does. Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Until next time.
See you.